Now that we have a large attack surface, we want to be specific and start testing individual assets. One of the first tests to perform is directory brute forcing. And similarly to what I did in a previous lesson, I will be suggesting more than one tool to achieve this purpose. And for the sake of this lesson, I'm not actually going to do directory brute forcing on the subdomains we found in the previous lesson, but you will be doing that in your assessments. As you already have a list of clean active subdomains, you can go ahead and test them individually. In this lesson, however, I'm going to spin up a deliberately vulnerable or intentionally vulnerable machine from Attack Defense Labs, and I'm actually going to use this one to do the brute forcing, and this is called Juice Shop. If you don't want to actually pay for a subscription on Attack Defense Labs, which is what I have, you can just Google Juice Shop download, and you can install this in a virtual machine on your own actual computer. Okay, now that the machine is on, we will actually be brute forcing for directories for this URL, this address. This is the address of the machine. Now the purpose of this test is to actually increase the attack surface of individual assets. However, this can also lead to valid vulnerability findings in case you find files or folders that contain sensitive information or that have broken access controls. And the tools that I'm going to be using in this case for brute forcing are Derb, Gobuster, Dirsearch, and Ffuf. Okay, so these are the 4 tools that I'm actually going to use, and we'll go through each of them. Let's actually, there are dozens, if not hundreds of other tools that can be used for the same purpose, but we will only stick to these 4 in today's lesson. Since this is not a beginner level course, I already assume you've figured out how to install them and you're good to go. Please make sure to read the resources document that comes along with this lesson for useful links when it comes to directory brute forcing. Like I said, I'll go through how I use these tools one by one. And the first point that I'm going to make is about word lists. As a security researcher, you will be developing your own custom-made private word list that is best you keep it private, as the name suggests. Keeping the list private and having it custom-made, always expanding and optimizing it, will increase your chances for scoring valid findings. Obviously, I'm not going to reveal my word list here, but I'm going to use one that you can find online. And here's the kicker. The sad reason why many security researchers never rise above the level of mediocrity is because they keep using the same beaten paths that others are using and others are displaying in their tutorials, courses, and write-ups. Unless you try to customize your approach, there are higher chances of getting duplicate submissions. Keep this in mind at all times. I cannot stress this enough. Alright, so I will be using the common.txt word list that comes with both Kali Linux and Parrot OS. So to find the common.txt, you can simply do a locate common.txt, and I have it in, I think it's this one, this common.txt. Let me just actually copy it, Control Shift, I'm just gonna copy it here, cat common.txt. You can see this is just a generic word list. We can then do a word count to see how many lines it has. So we have 4,600 words in it. Now another very good place to start for you to build your custom word lists, and I'm highlighting the usage of plural here, so word lists, because you might be using different word lists for different purposes, such as you won't be using the same word list for API brute forcing as for generic directory brute forcing. So in this case, a good place to start is sec lists. So sec lists. and it's over here in this GitHub repository of Daniel Missler. This link contains dozens of word lists, and I'm actually going to link this GitHub repository in the resources document of this lesson. Okay, the first tool that I'm going to be using is the good old Derb. And Derb is actually very straightforward. You can simply do Derb, HTTP. Let's actually copy paste the address one more time. So Derb, Control-Shift-V. And then we need to specify the word list, common.txt, and that's it. Very straightforward. Of course, you can do much more with Derb, so I encourage you to actually see its other available parameters. So Derb minus nothing is just Derb. If you simply type Derb, you can see its capabilities. You can see all the parameters that you can use to actually get the most out of this tool. Okay, we'll let Derb do its job. I usually use Derb just to confirm the results I'm getting from other tools. Now, similar to Derb, there's also Dirbuster, which is actually the GUI of Derb. So if we run Dirbuster, it's basically a graphical user interface of, and maybe it has a couple more features, but it's roughly the same thing, just with a better user-friendly look. Okay. The next tool that I want to be using is Gobuster. Now, I use Gobuster because it's really fast. As its name suggests, it's written in Go, but sometimes it might not actually work as intended. And I usually use Gobuster as follows. So let me just become root, and I do Gobuster dir minus u. Let's paste the address minus w common.txt. But first we need to go to tmp recon 08 and then Gobuster dir minus u. The word list is specified minus w common.txt. Let's also specify minus x for JS, txt, log, back, and PHP. Okay, now let me explain. In this case, I'm also specifying the extensions that I want Gobuster to append at the end of each word in the word list. Therefore, if the word list is 1,000 words long, Gobuster will actually make about 6,000 requests. 1,000 for the basic words in the word list with no extensions appended, and other 5,000 with the extensions appended, since I have 5 extensions that I'm requesting for Burp. Okay, let's also run this. It says that, so like I said, it's not super reliable at all times. If we do, we are being suggested to specify the wildcard, so minus minus wildcard. And this might actually work. Or not. So that's why I was saying that Gobuster can sometimes be unreliable even though it's super fast. While in this case, good old Derb seems to be more reliable, but it seems to be slower. Let's actually stop Gobuster. Okay, Gobuster, I don't want to bash Gobuster, but it can do much more than directory brute forcing. So you can simply see that by calling it in the command line. We can see it has dir for directory brute forcing, which is the one that we've used. It has DNS for DNS subdomain brute forcing. It also has vhosts, and we can simply go further down into its potential uses by specifying dir minus minus help. We can see all other parameters. If we specify minus so Gobuster DNS, we have other parameters or flags for DNS brute forcing, and so on and so forth. And I highly suggest that you try this deliberately. Try as many types of as many combinations of scans as possible, because in some situations some scans might work, in some other situations they might not. And as you've seen here, Gobuster seems to fail with this attack defense juice shop domain. I could actually make it work by trying to get to the bottom of the error and trying to refine the parameters that I'm specifying, but I'm not going to do that in this case because my purpose here is to only showcase a few of the tools and how I'm actually using them. The next tool, which is also my favorite and my top choice, is Dirsearch. I use it extensively in my research, and here's how I actually use it. So I do dirsearch.py -u, we have our URL, -w, we have our word list. So this is very similar to Gobuster. We also have the -e. In this case, -e is used for extensions, unlike -x as in Gobuster. And we'll specify the same extensions: JS, PHP, TXT, log, what else? Back. We also need to specify -b and -t with 200. Okay, in this case, like I said, we specified the -e for extensions, the -b parameter, so that Dirsearch makes the requests by host name and not by IP. I found this to be more efficient. I also specify the -t parameter for the number of threads. In this case, I use a lot of threads, so the brute forcing will be faster. However, if you want to be less noisy, you will be using fewer threads, and you would be adding delays between requests with the -s parameter. For the whole host of options and scans that Dirsearch is capable, of course, let me just start this. You can simply do dirsearch.py --help. And as with other tools, I highly suggest that you study this tool and all its capabilities. Now, for increased efficiency, I often use the -x parameter. So there is also the -x for excluding the status codes, such as the 400s and the 300s. Another great reason for which I like Dirsearch is that I can pause the brute forcing with Control-C. In this case, I just do Control-C, and it pauses all threads in a few moments. And this is paused. Then I can come back later or resume the virtual machine if I'm using a virtual machine and actually hit C or continue scanning, like I said, at a later point. And this is actually going to resume the scanning. Alright, now the final tool on the list, which I only rarely use, is Ffuf. This tool is also quite fast and quite flexible, as in the option it gives. What I like about it is that it goes way beyond brute forcing and it's capable of doing all sorts of fuzzing. So, Ffuf. A lot of parameters. Now, I don't do too much fuzzing, but when I do, I actually use Zap or burp proxy for this purpose, and we'll go to them or through them in future lessons. So how I use Ffuf? It's as simple as Ffuf -w for the word list, but let me actually move to our working directory. So Ffuf -word list common.txt -u or URL, and in this case we need to specify the fuzz MC match code status 200 -c -v. Okay, now as a side note, FFUF means faster fuzzer you fool, which, as the name implies, it's actually really fast. A lot of tools written in Go are very fast compared to tools written in other languages. Gobuster, like I said, is also written in Go. So aside of Python and Bash, you might be wanting to add Go to your repertoire of known programming languages. Now, the syntax that I've used here is very straightforward. So we have the word list, the URL, and the fuzz word. We have the fuzz word where we want Ffuf to be injecting the words from the word list. Then we have the match code or MC parameter, which tells Ffuf to only show us the responses that have a 200 OK status code. And the final two parameters, -c, -v, are for colored output and verbosity. Now, you can check all of what Ffuf can do by simply typing, like I said, Ffuf. But I need to be root, of course, because it is only added to my root environment variables. So you can check all the capabilities of Ffuf by simply typing Ffuf. Fuzz faster, you fool. Not faster fuzzer, you fool. Again, it's the same thing. So this is why I love Dirsearch. As you can see, we have a lot of nicely colored output. Okay, so 3 tools that are working. Gobuster, disappointing, but it also works in many circumstances. As I've pointed out at the beginning of the video, there are many tools that achieve roughly the same purpose when it comes to directory and file brute forcing. Some of them have more features, some are faster than others, and some are simpler to use, like Derb here. I think that a combination of a few of them, like I've taught you in this video, can work wonders, especially if you need to double check, triple check, or cross check results, or if you notice that one of them does not work to its desired purpose. Whatever you do, make sure to understand the full usage of the tool correctly by studying its help section or documentation, because you want to be using it with its entire capabilities.